Okay, how do you empty an array? Given a variable that is an array data type, how do you empty that variable? Well, I think there are two different things we can do here. We can answer the question and empty the array. And then I think we can take it a step further and also make sure that we are emptying and updating any references to that array variable. So let's go ahead and create an array in JavaScript. So let's say var numbers is equal to array 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. So if you are like me, you probably thought this through in a very complicated way the first time, right? So you might have thought of something like this: while numbers dot length, so while numbers has a length, numbers pop. Okay, so now if we do that, console.log numbers, and we run our file here, you can see we have an empty array. So that worked, right? But there's actually some easier one-liners that would save us from having to create another loop inside of our application. So let's try the first one here. Let's say numbers is equal to an empty array. So we're basically reassigning the value of numbers. So that works, right? But let's go ahead and add our new variable that's going to reference this one here. So let's say var, we'll just say num. So let's say var num is equal to numbers. Okay, and we emptied out numbers. Now let's check the value of num. You can see we still have our 5 array values still present. Okay, so that doesn't work for emptying out any references. So let's try this instead. We'll say numbers.length is equal to 0. Okay, so let's first check that with our numbers. Okay, it worked. Now let's check it with our reference. Okay, that also worked. So that's one solution. Solution 1, right? So we can say solution 1, right? So there's actually another thing we can do. We can go numbers.splice, and we'll just put in the 1 parameter here, the 1 argument of 0. And basically by doing that, we are saying we want to update all values starting with the first one here. There are other parameters we can add, but I'll let you take a look at that yourself. So let's go ahead and comment this one out so we don't it doesn't affect our new solution here. So let's try it. You see that also worked. Okay, so that's great. Okay, so let's try this in PHP. This is a little different here. So let's go ahead and create an array. Array is equal to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. And then let's go ahead and create a reference right away here. So we'll just say r is equal to array. Okay. So let's go ahead and try our first method here. So we'll say array is equal to an empty array. So we're going to reassign the value of array to an empty array. And then we'll var dump that. We'll var dump r. Okay, well let's do array first just so we can prove that it works here. So let's see. Okay, so that worked for our original variable. Okay, now let's try it with our reference here. Okay, so you can see that didn't work. Same as JavaScript, it didn't work. Okay, so let's try something else. Let's try unset array. Okay, so we'll go ahead and var dump array first. Okay, and you can see we have a notice right from PHP, an undefined variable, and that's because we basically removed the variable name array from our application. Okay, so you know that also, I guess you could say, also emptied the array because it removed it from memory. Now let's check our reference here. Now you can see that one is still intact. So that didn't work with any variables that might have been set to equal the original array. What makes PHP different from JavaScript is that by using the equal sign like we've done here at the beginning, we're basically saying we want ARR to equal the value of array. So it's going to copy the value of that. JavaScript, on the other hand, when you use the equal sign like this, it passes by value, right? So num is equal to the number's value, except that numbers is an object, right? It's an array object. So because of that, it's actually passed a reference instead of the value. So if we were to say, let's go down here and then we'll say var name is equal to Tyler, and then we'll say var name is equal to name. Okay, and then we were to update the value of name, and then we were to console log name. Let's go back to JavaScript here. You can see that it's still saying that name is Tyler, and that's because we're passing that by value, right? Because this is not an array, this is not an object, it's a string, right? So that's why it's passing that by value. And so nam will always keep the value of Tyler unless nam is reassigned itself. But since the numbers up here is an array object, that's why it's passed by reference. So in PHP, when we assign something again with the equal sign, we are passing the value. So the way around this in JavaScript is to add an and symbol or an ampersand to the setting of ARR here, of R here. So we're saying R is equal to ampersand and then array. Okay, and now this right here is a pass by reference, not a pass by value. Okay, so now that we've gone ahead and we've reassigned R as a reference to array, let's go ahead and try our first method again here in PHP of reassigning array the value of an empty array. And then let's go ahead and try that. Okay, so you can see now R is an empty array. So let's go ahead and try array here just to make sure. And that worked as well. So let's go ahead and try the unset function here in PHP again and see what happens with that. So we're unsetting array. So we already know that it makes array undefined, so let's just check R here. And you can see it still holds the original value of the array. So we know that unset won't work, but we do know that one method that we have is, or one solution is to set array equal to an empty array. Okay, and that's it. That's how you can solve that question of how do you empty an array in JavaScript and PHP. And you need to keep in mind the difference between referencing or assigning a reference to a variable, and assigning it the value of the variable.